Opening night is here, and we kick things off with a Central Division clash. It's the Dallas Stars and Winnipeg Jets. So we bring you a special crossover edition of Locked On Stars and Locked On Jets.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to this crossover edition of Locked On Stars and Locked On Jets. Howdy, everybody. I'm Joey Erickson, your host of Locked On Stars. Over there is Harrison Lee, the host of the Locked On Winnipeg Jets. And we want to thank you for joining us, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Opening night is here. Harrison, Stars versus Jets. A little playoff rematch from last spring. How you feeling with hockey finally being back? It certainly has to feel good.
Yeah. I have a lot of interesting feelings about the upcoming season. Jets Twitter has been a hot mess, so
I bet.
We even had Elliot Friedman kind of putting out a little bit of a 32 thoughts where he said the Jets were being disrespected and dissected. So it's not Winnipeg hockey without some sort of drama, right? Like there's always just something weird going on.
Well, I'm going to have plenty of questions to grill you on some of that stuff that's been transpiring over the last couple of weeks, but something that just transpired recently. Kyle Connor signs long-term. So what do you make of that? You know, there's always this conversation that revolves around Winnipeg. It's not a destination. Nobody wants to go there and whatnot, but over the last two seasons now, you got Scheifele, you got Hellebuyck, you got Connor now for 8 years, $12 million, which feels like such a fantastic deal. And now you have a pretty damn good core locked up.
Yeah, what's interesting is I think the conversation around KFC has always been a little more complicated. In previous years, he used to cheat a lot for offense, and that did kind of show up. If there was a defensive zone thing, you had four guys in and there's KFC in the neutral zone. He last year overhauled his game and did commit a lot more. So if that's the version the Jets are getting going forward, I think a lot of people are going to be thrilled. From Winnipeg's perspective, they were caught in a really hard place. Winnipeg, not the happiest destination for most players. I think a lot of people are starting to change that perception, but it just takes time to really knock against that. Getting them there is the challenge. Once they're here, they realize playing for the Jets is actually pretty dang cool. But it's just, that struggle is always a battle back and forth. And, with star players like this, you don't really have any way to replace them. Once they're gone, they're gone. And I think with the league economics changing and everything, there really wasn't a way that the Jets were going to not sign Connor. It just had to happen. Yeah. And I think, he also does call some of the shots. He and Scheifele always want to play together and stuff. And so there's definitely some complicated conversations around, what do you do from here, right? And will they be willing to change in some way? How do they want to move forward? But if there's one thing that's for sure, it's that the Jets really love him. And Connor never, has been a guy who's ever seemed unhappy playing for the Jets. He just seems to be pretty at peace doing whatever. He's on the top line. He's playing with Scheifele. So, any of the conversations about him leaving, it was always super, super unlikely. The only thing I thought might have happened is if the negotiations really hit a wall that they could not pass. But the Jets just went whole hog. They gave him $41 million in signing bonuses, which they have never done before. If this is a new era of the Jets and this is kind of the first heralding of that, it's going to be really interesting. This league in a lot of ways doesn't seem to be favoring a lot of these small market teams, but maybe the Jets are trying to get with the times. They certainly have a very rich ownership. The financial backing is there if they want to lean on it. I don't know if that necessarily bleeds into operating stuff, but tell you what, they are swinging, and now it's time for them to build around Connor and the rest of the core.
Yeah, and now there's a bunch of players getting their long-term deals done over the last week or so. And now I know there's a few people on hockey Twitter that are upset because now the 2026 free agency isn't going to be very exciting. But on Stars Twitter, they're wondering about Jason Robertson and maybe how Kyle Connor affects that. And now I have to be honest with you, Harrison, after a few of the deals that have come through over the last week or so, I'm feeling a bit more confident that potentially the Stars could get something done. Now, it just feels like Kaprizov's going to be a bit of an anomaly, right? that 17 million. And is he worth that to everybody else in the NHL? I don't know, maybe to some teams, but to the Minnesota Wild, he absolutely was, and he had a lot of leverage, and he went laughing to the bank along with Bill Guerin. So, but I have to say, going in just maybe even 2 weeks ago, I did an episode thinking, I don't think the Stars are going to be able to get this done. Like, I just don't see how it's going to be realistic. And do you really want to give him more than Mikko Rantanen, who we know is a proven playoff killer? And Robertson, for as good as he's been, I think he's sort of been in the same class of Connor over the last couple seasons. Like, they're really elite goal scorers. But Robertson hasn't necessarily shown that come playoff time. He's been good, but it hasn't been Mikko Rantanen level. Like, there's levels to this. But, after like a Connor comes through and even Eichel to some degree, you're thinking maybe the Stars can actually like get this done. And maybe they do have to give him a $12.5 million deal. Mm-hmm. It is a bit more than Rantanen, but we all know the cap seems to be going up. I know that's always the trajectory of it. Who knows how it's going to work? I've always said too. And I did have a caveat on that episode. If Jim Nill, if it's one GM that can maybe get it done, it's probably him. And players like to play in Dallas. They want to stay there. We have seen it over the last couple of years. Like, players have taken less. I mean, Matt Duchene, look at what he's signed for in Dallas over the last couple of years. He's been a really good, $3 million player for 2 years. And now he got himself a little bit more of a long-term deal in his mid-30s. So I hope Robo can stay. And now with the deals coming in, I feel like it may get done sooner. I've sort of been under the impression that he's probably going to play the full year without getting a deal done. But, after some of these deals starting to come through, I'm curious if his agent and maybe even Robo get the itch to try to work something out and lock him up long term. And that's just another feather in the Stars cap, who have a pretty good young core tied up. So congratulations to Connor. He got paid. And as I mentioned, I think the Jets have a really solid now core going, and now they have to build around it, and maybe they can do some more work at the deadline. I know you were itching for them to do some of that last year. So I am curious, because there's something that sort of came out, I guess maybe on Twitter, if you want to say, just Hockey Spaces after the Stars Jets playoff series. And I'm curious your take on maybe the top players for Winnipeg not playing that much. I felt like I heard about that. Maybe like Ehlers wasn't playing a ton. Maybe even Connor, because they wanted to be more balanced. I'm curious, is that an overreaction to something? Or is that something you would like to see maybe Scott Arniel do a bit better, is have some of the big guns play a bit more, play some heavier minutes, and maybe that helps out?
I think for the Jets, like, in terms of how he runs deployments, Arniel usually gives like the second and third lines some level of even deployment. The top line will always lead. Yeah. I think the challenge is that the top line for the Jets is kind of, I mean, they're good and they have some really strong games, but, against top competition, it's been a little bit questionable, right? Like, they're a more 50-50 unit. And last year was a huge improvement over what they did previously, which at times they were one of the worst lines on the Jets in previous years under Bones. So that part I don't worry about so much. When it came to Ehlers, Ehlers was just always undervalued by Winnipeg for some reason. So in some ways, when you talk about him leaving, it's kind of funny because I don't know that it's going to be as apparent on the Jets, barring a couple of really key exceptions. But when he goes to like a Carolina or something, how he does might, start to turn some heads and make people realize maybe he should have had more 5v5 time than Mason Appleton. But, it is what it is. At this point, I've kind of come to accept that the Jets are the way that they are. They have, at times they're loyal to a fault. I think the biggest question is, can they work around some of their own idiosyncrasies and really hit that next playoff level? Like, they've mastered the regular season.
Yeah.
It's the playoffs that are just, like, for us, a real boondoggle. At least last year they won more than one game. So, like, that's a great start. I will
Yes.
100% take that. But where you go from there, I guess, is maybe the next step.
Well, the Stars boondoggle is certainly the Western Conference Final over the last couple of years. So the Stars and Jets have their own obstacles, maybe unique to each of them, but they certainly have their obstacles. Now, we have Stars Jets opening night. Glenn Gulletson, his first game behind the bench in sort of this second era with the Dallas Stars. The Jets are maybe running into some injuries. I'm curious, is there any panic buttons being hit in Winnipeg? We'll discuss that and some more in just a moment. Today's crossover edition of Locked On Stars and Locked On Winnipeg Jets is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting. I know Harrison is a big Ravens fan, if I'm not mistaken. I know they're without Lamar Jackson recently, so that hurts. The Dallas Cowboys, for whatever reason, are finding ways to win without a defense at all. Dak Prescott's playing at a heck of a level. So both teams are going to have a very interesting season, and FanDuel allows you to play along with it and have some fun. Whether you're just watching your favorite team, maybe you're watching your fantasy team. I certainly am. It's a lot of fun. And FanDuel, again, allows you to play how you like to play. Parlays, player props. You can even follow the live lines during the game. And as I said, $5, you play that first bet. If you win, $300 in bonus bets. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So, Harrison, I've seen quite a few injuries roll through for the Jets. The Stars, of course, have their captain out for at least a month. Jamie Benn suffered a collapsed lung. That certainly doesn't help. But I'm curious, is there any worrying from the Jets fan base about what's already transpired before the season has even started? And, you know, there's some guys that you're hoping are going to be key pieces, and maybe not even just hoping, are key pieces are going to be out. But is it better now than later in the season for the Jets?
Yeah, I guess. It's funny, you were just talking just a second ago about the Dallas defense, because well, like the Ravens, I think the Jets back end's probably where we're seeing a lot of the worst impact. You know, when a forward goes down, it's not great. And Cole Perfetti's out long term, probably. I think they said week to week, so that's not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Ankle sprains kind of suck, so not great. Taves should be ready to go, but he's 37, and technically as an over 30-year-old, when you tweak something, I know it's not exactly easy to come back from that. So, you got to give him some patience. But Dylan Sandberg, I think, is the one that hurts the most. The Jets just don't have a replacement. It's like losing. If Heiskanen was only on defense, that's kind of like a really defensively minded blue liner. Sandberg is kind of like that stabilizing anchor. But you guys had a Harley, right? We don't have a Harley. So, it's coming down to Josh Morrissey. And once you get past Morrissey to Mello, you've got Fleury, Pionk, and Stanley Shen, which that's that's a group you could have. I think you have had plenty of experiences watching what was it, Dumba and Labushkin and some of the other guys.
Yeah. CC.
Oh gosh, yeah, Cody CC.
He looked great the other night, huh?
So you get used to kind of the lack of foot speed and puck moving ability. The Jets are usually a very stingy team across the board, as a team structure. This is going to be the first real test. I guess the one good thing is our schedule for October is not that hard. And I'm saying this now, and I'm probably going to look like a dumbass in a few weeks. But I look at where the Jets are playing. It's Calgary and Philadelphia, the Isles. The Stars are probably one of the hardest teams we're going to face, and it's game one. So I'm feeling slightly less bad about it, but still not great.
Yeah, the Stars didn't get a ton of favors from the schedule makers. They got Jets, Colorado, Minnesota right off the hop, and I think those could very well be the top 3 teams in the top 4 teams in the Central division. And I'm fascinated to see this, as you kind of said. It's a great test to see Golison's plan of attack. He's going to try to change the defensive zone system to more of a hybrid style. And I think sort of give back to what the Stars really have been as a core, even in the first 2 years under DeBoer and previous, like they were a shutdown team. They didn't give up a ton. The offense sometimes sputtered. And then under DeBoer, the offense really started to grow and increase. But then towards the end of his tenure, like the last month and a half, really 2 months of the regular season, they just cratered defensively, and they were getting outshot in every single game. Otter to Smith were facing 45 plus shots, and it made life really tough. They were able to solve some of those issues. Well, maybe not solve them. I think they just hit them in the first 2 rounds of the postseason because their power play is really opportunistic. I think they hit a lot of that. I mean, the one game they won in the Western Conference Final, they went like 3 for 6 on the power play. And they were able to defeat Edmonton when they were down, I think it was 3-0 at one point. So now I think Goldson, that's his challenge, trying to get Dallas back to sort of, I guess, their identity and be a bit more of a structured team in front of their own net, and play a more physical brand. I think maybe it's more like the Jets over the last couple of years. They're moving back to a 4th line that is more of a checking line. You have like Erratic Foxa. They brought in a guy like Nathan Bastian. There's an obvious point to try to get bigger, to try to get heavier. And now, like you talk about like Lyubushkin, well, I think Stars fans feel a lot better because Lyubushkin is going to be on their 3rd pair. And that's where he needs to be. Him and Bischel, the Stars sort of have a battering ram there. And oddly enough, I think the Stars defense, their defensive pairing is a bit more stable than it has. They're still hoping for Niels Lundqvist to pop. Right. He improved a ton last year, and then he got hurt. But he's going to get an opportunity to play with Harley in that top 4. And if he comes into his zone, and you're like, damn, the Stars actually have a pretty decent top 4. And it looks like Miro and Lindell are going to be put together. So, I mean, that's just like a shutdown pairing. I think that's everybody's dream. So it really is going to be fascinating to see. And the Stars, again, like the gauntlet is pretty tough right off the hop. So it's kind of sink or swim time, which may be better too when you're trying to figure out what team they kind of maybe want to be here under Golicin. Any players, anything you're just excited to, maybe something that isn't obvious to everybody watching the Jets, that maybe there's just one big thing, if you had to say, that you're looking forward to watch about this Jets team. It could be something stupid too. It doesn't have to, but just something fun that you're hoping to see out of Winnipeg, or maybe you're hoping to see build throughout the season.
I guess if we're going to be like a retiree club, then at least, be a fun retiree club. The Jets are like, this year's going to be really weird because they signed a bunch of 1-year deals. And when they did this, I did kind of wonder if they weren't really punting on the season, but they just weren't super committed either way, right? The kinds of veterans that they brought in, Cole Koepka looks great, but he's, a good 4th liner. Pearson, the brain and hands still work. Like, he's super sharp mentally. The skating kind of not so great, which, as somebody who used to really love Pearson, that hurts a lot. I always thought he was super underappreciated, and he was kind of one of those amazing elite middle sixers that just, every cup team needs. But I think Winnipeg is trying to sort of bring in the cup experience, maybe at the expense of some of the youth. So how this kind of plays out, I'm not sure. I think during the regular season, a lot of these issues won't pop up. I really kind of am just waiting to see how this team coalesces. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be good for the regular season, and it won't shock me if they hit 100 plus points, probably on the lower end, not, 116 again. But, it's just, this team is weird. I don't have a feel for it yet. I think it looks very similar to last year's team, but I don't think it is. And so that's kind of where I'm at. So I guess for me, this is kind of unexplored territory in some ways. You have a 2C that hasn't played in 2 years, which will be fascinating. In camp, Taves looked He still has NHL speed, relatively speaking. But, I think Winnipeg's going to be riding some borderline moments, and the goal scoring is going to be hard for them. So how can they win these games, right? Like strong defense. I guess they'll probably try and do the same thing the Stars are doing, which is be very physical and aggressive in the corners. And how do you get the puck up the ice, right? How does the transition game work? I think that is, I don't want to call it like the fun thing necessarily, but it's what I'll be paying attention to. So there's a lot of moving parts. Of the 3 competitive years that I think the Jets see for themselves, this one doesn't feel like the one just yet. I think years 2 and 3 of that window start to look a little more realistic, especially once kids from the Moose graduate. But for this year, I'm throwing my hands up. We'll see. It's going to be a vibes year. I think this is going to be it's going to be a vibes year. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think, as you kind of said, like, it feels like the Stars Jets are a bit of a different boat. Of course, it's all unique, but I think Dallas is hoping they can rely on some guys that are not proven scorers or even proven middle sixers, top 6 guys to help chip in. I mean, we're going into tonight now, Harrison, thinking like Sam Steele is going to play with Mikko Rantanen and Roope Hintz. Like, that's what they trotted out in practice. Blackwell was playing with Duchesne and Sagan. So those are guys you're hoping can maybe elevate in replace roles like a Mason Marchman and Evgeny Dodonov, who the Stars lost. Those are 220 goal scorers a year ago. So I think the Stars will struggle to score at times. They have the high-end talent. We know that. Like Robertson, Johnston, Rantanen, they're going to be able to score, but they're not going to have the amount of depth like they had. I think a couple of years ago they had 8 20-goal scorers. That's not going to happen this year with what they're trotting out there. But it makes it fun. There's some unknowns. It feels like for the first time in a couple of years. Now Harrison predicts, or at least he kind of threw out there, he sees a Jet somewhere in that century mark range for points. So what are your central predictions? We'll discuss ours, where we see both the Stars and Jets falling within the central, and maybe the bigger picture as well. And we'll do that in just a moment. So Harrison, after we got together for that central roundtable, for any of you that have not watched, go watch that. It was a lot of fun. We were with Locked On Wild. We had Seth and Chris from Locked On Avs talking just about the upcoming season. I went on and was talking about, I don't know if I see the Stars. I think the Stars, the FanDuel, the lines or the bets had the Stars, I guess, with the highest over-under total, thinking they maybe win the Central. And I was like, I don't know if I see it. But then a couple days ago, I was making my official predictions, and then I'm going through the depth charts on Puckpedia. I'm kind of just comparing, and I'm like, the Stars aren't that bad. I'm like, when you watch a team so much, it feels like you can only get critical, which is annoying. And I have to catch myself sometimes. But I'm like, the Stars are pretty good. And then I'm like, you know what? They're going to win the Central. That's right. Yeah, that's kind of where I landed. I think Colorado's up there too. I'll be honest. I'm a little cool on the Jets, Harrison. I think I'm going to be a bit of a hater. So you got to tell me why I can't be cooler on the Jets, why I should believe that this is a team that's going to be a real tough contender in the Central. So you got to make the case for me, because I was looking, I don't know, but it's going to come back me in the ass because you have Connor Hellebuyck.
Therein kind of lies the rub, right? I think that's the natural inclination of being cooler on the Jets is not wrong. This team is not last year's team, for better and for worse. I think that there's going to be some interesting stuff. We're going to have one thing I forgot to mention. We have Nikita Chibrikov entering the top 6, which, I don't know that he's necessarily a top 6 talent, but this is like the first prospect since Perfetti that we've seen actually get some sort of a significant chance. Yeah. Lambert and Chibrikov both played a little bit last year. So there's some interesting stuff. But, on the whole, this Jets team is going to be very vet heavy, and they're going to be older and slower. And with that, I do think that there could be some more health risks, right? Like Taves, it's going to take him time to get back up to speed. We're still without Lowry, and I think people don't realize how important Lowry is to this team. Yeah. I'm not going to put him on the same level of like a Sandberg necessarily, but Lowry's probably one of our most important matchup forwards. There's just no one on the team that does his job. And the guys that I think could do it, Winnipeg doesn't use. David Gustafson's a guy I look at, and for some reason, like, sure, he's not the fastest skater, but like he does the things that make every coach just swoon. He's physical, he's tough, he's a smart player, but for some reason he rides pine all the time. So, this Jets team, again, I think they're going to have to play a lot of games where they're winning 3-2. The power play is where I think Ehlers is really going to be missed. That first power play unit, he was such a roaming threat, and I think that's why they were one of the league's best last year. Right now, we've got Iafallo in his spot, and I like Al. I think he's a really nice middle six guy. He's just not Ehlers, and really no one is. So, the power play could see a slight dent on the first unit. The second unit, though, is a lot stronger in some ways. You're adding Nyquist and Taves, so maybe that adds that finishing element. But I just think this team is kind of in that 3 to 4 range in the Central, where, even with some of the injuries to start, I still think that they're good enough to get through quite a bit. The only thing that could be a real pain for them is if a team like Utah, which I continue to think is one of the more sleeper teams, kind of pushes them. Yeah. Utah is one of those teams that I think people are not really paying enough attention to. And they were one of the teams last year that just completely slapped the Jets around at 5v5. So how a team like that, and maybe some of the quiet ones, will the Preds turn it around? I saw they had like Brady Martin or something on the first line. I'm like, oh, okay. Like
I did the same thing. I was like, maybe not national.
I was like, all right. There's playing your kids, and then there's maybe asking a little much. But I just think the Jets are still one of those teams that's going to be fine in the regular season. But the narrative is always what happens in the postseason. And it's kind of interesting because I thought about the Stars a little bit. And the one thing when you said you were at first cooler on them, I have this weird thing with like Glenn that I'm just not sure about him as a coach.
Yeah.
The Flames days I didn't love. And didn't he have a stint with Toronto? Was it
Vancouver?
Was it Vancouver? Okay.
Yeah, correct.
It's like some of these stints I've watched him, I'm just like, And like I look at the Stars on paper and I'm like, there's no way this team loses the Central, right? But then I keep thinking, what happens if they do?
Yeah, and that's where I think that's why maybe I'm cooler too. It's like Goldson is an unknown. I know, I guess around the Stars circle, like everybody's pretty optimistic. Which I think they should be, just because like he is being handed a really damn good team. So it's like, can he mess it up? But it doesn't feel like he can. But as he said, like the tough starts could be I hate to be hyperbolic, but if you're 3-7, after 10 games, you're like, oh no, this is going bad. I don't foresee that. I think maybe now he's been through the gauntlet enough. I think he said all the right things, which I think is sort of easy to do now that the real fire has started. But I think he's going to have to take a lot of convincing, and that was one of the reasons. I wasn't really on board for if we're talking just right after the Western Conference Final, and I wasn't on board to fire DeBoer just because there wasn't like a slam dunk candidate at that time. A lot of the others had already been hired. So like it was a risk for Dallas to do this. And hopefully Glenn, I think this is probably at this point, like maybe his last shot of being a head coach long-term. Otherwise he's just going to be kind of fit into that role. Like he's a good assistant. He was great. I'm in Edmonton. Like he ran a really good power play and whatnot. So like this is your chance. I feel like now, like you got a great roster. An organization has a lot of their young core signed up. So you can either do it now or like you're going to be an assistant. And I hope it works out for him because he seems to have the locker room, which is good early on. And we'll see what he can do. You speak of Lowry. I know they're captains, but he's sort of like the Jamie Benn, it feels like, of Dallas, just like you said, just like physical. And that is one of the concerns I have. Jamie Benn has just been available over the last few years. Like he's just plays. But he missed 2 games last year. And those 2 games, like the Stars just feel awkward. Like they don't feel the same. I think that's just what happens when you have a captain that's been there for as long as he has. And I'm really curious to see how. I know he's not playing as big of a role as he once used to, but I am kind of intrigued to see how that kind of shakes out in the first couple months. Just because when you don't have that sort of heartbeat of your team, like you can feel a bit different. But you mentioned the power play. This is one of my bold predictions for the Stars this year. I said the Stars going to lead the league in power play percentage. That's one of my bold predictions. You know, Golitzin is this power play mastermind, right? I know he had Draisaitl, McDavid, but he does
help a little bit.
Yeah, it certainly does. But the caveat is they weren't very good until he got there, so that's what we all like to tell ourselves. So that's one of my bold. So I'm curious. Did you make a Winnipeg bold prediction? If you haven't, then I'm putting you on the spot. You have to come up with one.
Oh, good Lord. Wow. So I think Hellebuyck is going to have another Vezina season.
Wow, okay.
But I think the workload is going to be a lot higher already, with and not just like in games played, but I think in terms of shot totals, the last couple of years, I don't know if people realize this, but he actually faced some of the lowest shot totals in his entire career. And like he was still excelling off of that. So I think this year they're going to be a little more porous. I think the Jets, because they're going to be slower, because they're going to not be as quick to get the puck out of the D zone, I think he's going to have to do more work. And I think when he earns that Vezina, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that brother was busting a sweat. So I can't really say that it's bold in one way. Yes. Yeah. Like everyone's like, oh, Hellebuyck winning a Vezina, like, come on, like, what are we doing here, right? Yeah, shocker. But I think people are going to be surprised by how much he might have to carry this team through a couple of moments where the offense is maybe not putting that many pucks past other goalies.
Well, the other storyline with Hellebuyck and the Stars is kind of intertwined. Is Jake Ottinger, of course. We have the Olympics this year. So your gut feeling now, who's the number one netminder for Team USA? Do they go Jake or they go Connor? I still have a slight edge. I would give it to Hellebuyck right now. It may depend in the next couple of months. Like, who knows? Maybe Ottinger wins that job. And fair or not, like, I guess if some coaches or Bill Guerin, for whatever reason, takes a lot of stock in the last postseason series. But is that what your gut would say too? Is Hellebuyck would get the starting job over Ottinger at this point?
Yeah, see, the Olympics don't have the word playoffs in it, so it's fine. As long as like you don't tell anyone it's the playoffs. I think
just
the
a gold medal, okay? It's not that crazy.
It's a gold medal. It's an Olympic medal, right? It's no big deal. It's not as good as the Stanley Cup, in my opinion. But like, the Jets defense had a lot of issues with some certain shot types, and I think Team USA is going to manage that better. Well,
I would hope.
Theory, I would hope, right? Like you hope.
Or don't let McDavid like wide open in the slot, right?
Yeah,
in the
right.
Formations or
like
whatever.
He's still going to get open at some point. Like it's just going to happen.
Yes,
but hopefully, like we don't see like 6,000 point shots, because then Otter will have to take over at that rate. But I think Hellebuyck has the edge. I think they're going to look at him as the guy who's going to be the workhorse. But having Ottinger, Wolf, guys like that potentially fighting for spots, either to back up or even maybe eat a couple of starts and rest some guys. You really can't hate that. I mean, if that's your like number 2 or number 3, you're feeling pretty good about life.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to live. And it will be a lot of fun to watch that tandem. Hellebuyck, it'll be fun to have all the NHL guys back in the Olympics as well. Well, Harrison, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I'm thankful that you were able to get back to me on short notice. I literally reached out to Harrison last night. I was like, hey, you want to do it? Should have done it more in advance, but I appreciate you hopping on for a bit. Stars Jets tonight, 7:00 Central Standard Time. Both teams kicking it off. I assume it's a whiteout in Winnipeg, so that barn's going to be buzzing and a lot of fun, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know that they'll have like all the shirts up, but it'll be sold out. It'll be sold out. Everyone's like, as long as like Taves is like anywhere within about 100 square miles of the building, it'll be packed. So
love it. Yeah, man. Taves is always been one of my favorite players growing up. So I'm excited he's back too. It's that's good for the game. So it'll be a lot of fun. But thank you once again for all of you that tuned into this crossover edition of Locked On Stars and Locked On Winnipeg Jets. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe on this video. Subscribe to Locked On Stars and Winnipeg Jets. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. That's going to do it, and we'll see you on our next respective episodes of Locked On Stars and Locked On Jets. So long, everybody.